Welcome, team. Today I'm that excited. I have a very good friend, an old mate, an athlete, a professional athlete that I saw go from a junior to an elite level international rugby league player, and now doing some awesome things post rugby league, mate. Nothing is scripted. Tim Mannah. Tim Mannah, mate, thank you so much. When I say nothing is scripted, I love it that way. Because I feel like we're just going to chat as if the listener is sitting right here with us.
Yep.
And the type of listeners I have, made, a lot of them are coaches, leaders, business people, some trainers. So when I ask questions, obviously they're geared towards how can this help them.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's just chat and see where it goes. But thanks so much for your time.
Thanks for having me. Obviously, I've listened to a lot of your stuff and big fan of our time together at Parramatta, but I've seen your career and the experience you've had is actually perfect for the audience. You talk about leaders, coaches, even business people. Your experience and what you've done is actually perfect for them to hear that. So, yeah, it's an honour to be here, and looking forward to chatting. And I think unscripted is probably the best way to go. We just freestyle.
Let's go. Well, mate, for the newer listeners, the younger listeners. We're going back to like 2009 when you debuted.
Yeah.
We worked together at the Parramatta Eels. And since then, you went on, you played State of Origin, Rugby League, you captained your club, you're a leader yourself, you were always seen as that leader. You played for Lebanon. Hey, get me some Lebanon. I tell you what, I did an episode with Aaron Warburton, the CEO of the Bulldogs, and I started getting a lot of Lebanese following and messages. It was really cool. So get me some.
Yes.
Let's reach out to the Lebanese community. Share this episode.
New
please.
demographic. Let's go.
Let's go.
Yeah, well, Warbo used to be at Para as well. So
did.
You Bulldogs fans, he was one of ours first.
Yes, he was, and he's doing a great job. Well, they all are.
Yeah. I love Warbo. I love you look at the club and how quickly they've turned that around. They had their 12 months last year where some people couldn't really see the direction, and now that people can see it, the proof is in the pudding. And obviously Gus, but Warburton, Serraldo, they've all done a great job to turn that place around really quickly.
Yes, well, when we're talking about the new community that will listen just because of the name Tim Mannah, there'll be a Lebanese community tune in. Make sure you go back and listen to the Aaron Warburton episode. It was a couple of years ago before, they were going through some pain. They had a painful period, but you could feel in that episode that things will turn. The way he believes that culture will win, a most connected team. I know Cam Serraldo is big on that. The most connected team wins, and the most connected team are the best defensive team.
Yeah.
Now, I know Cam very well and worked with him before, and you could see that in his team. You can see it right now.
Yeah.
So,
well, the effort area is the thing that stands out when you watch the Dogs.
yeah.
They're not as talented, I think, as other teams, but they rip in for each other, and that's what gives them that edge. Like when the game's on the line, they got to defend, they scramble really well, and that's stuff you can coach, but it's also something that some players can't do. So they're very selective of who they start recruiting from now on, and they all fit in that mold, and they all have that in them.
Yeah, and their fans, mate, that community.
Yeah.
Got goosebumps. I'm about to ask you about the 2009 prelim final. That was one of my best memories working with a rugby league team, was the 2009 prelim final. When you were playing. It was your first year of NRL, and we played against the Eels, played the Bulldogs. That, mate, that atmosphere, like what was it like for you? I remember what it was like for me as a staff member.
Yeah.
I'm envious of that community, how passionate they are for their team.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you remember, there was, if you go back 2 decades ago, there was some violence at a Para Bulldogs game, and that meant that moving forward, because security wasn't strong enough at Para Stadium, it meant that every time the Bulldogs and Parramatta played, it had to be at ANZ Stadium. So for years, we never had a Bulldogs Para game at Parramatta. So that's just how strong the rivalry was. It was always just that, a real passion. I actually grew up a Bulldogs fan as a kid. So I was on the other side of the fence growing up. I signed with Para as a 14-year-old and then quickly switched allegiances. But I have a lot of family that go for the Bulldogs, and I know how much there's tension there is between the two clubs. So even when we played that game, I had all my family supporting the Dogs against me. But it was a special experience, and I know my followers are probably sick of listening to it because I say in my whole career, over State of Origin, over anything I did, that was my favourite game I've ever experienced. And, you know, as you came out of the tunnel, and it was the best thing, they ticketed. So back to the whole fighting and the violence that took place at one event years and years ago, they actually separated the crowd. So they had, when they sold the tickets, they asked who you supported, and you walked out of the tunnel, and it was literally blue and white one side of the stadium, blue and gold the other. And just because it was a to and fro game, the atmosphere was, the whole time was back and forth. And sometimes when you're playing a game, and you know, as a trainer, when you're on the field, you don't really notice all the time because you're just so caught up in the moment of being present and on the field. And it doesn't really matter whether you're playing in a field in Mudgee with 20 people or whether you're playing in front of 80,000. Sometimes you're just so caught up in the game. But that was one game I can look back on and remember just how electric that atmosphere was and the buzz you got from the crowd. It's amazing.
Mate, I remember Daniel Anderson, he said to me before the game, so obviously I take the team out and we prepare to play, and he stayed in the sheds, but he said, mate, take them out, run everyone across to the other side of the stadium, embrace it all, then run down the corner, then run across the in goals there and embrace all the fans, and then start warming up. I've never done it after or before. Like it was a Daniel thing. He said you have to go and embrace this, you know. And oh mate, that was electric that night. It's still one of my great memories, and I love hearing you talk about it. But that following the Bulldogs growing up, little confession too from me because I've worked at a few clubs. I did the same.
Did you? Dogs?
Well, it's really weird because I was brought up in the Parramatta district and I was a follower of Parramatta, you know. But then I was torn because I'm getting all these great childhood memories here. A friend of mine's brother was playing some lower grades at the Bulldogs, so his family used to take us to Belmore and watch. So Terry Lamb became my idol, and Steve Mortimer and those guys, right? Although I was Parramatta through and through, and I was in the district, and I ended up working a long time at Parramatta, but I'm kind of like, I'm almost like that crowd that night. I was 50-50.
That's good,
I was 50-50, which sounds like you were because you grew up supporting them, but now you're a life.
Well, I stayed at Belmore as well. But like I said, I did switch pretty young. So when I was 14, getting signed by Para, wearing the colours, it was hard. Like from then on, my allegiance was with Para, and I used to look up to your Kalos and your Hindies, and like I just wanted to follow in their footsteps. So I did switch pretty young, but growing up, huge Dogs fan. I had an uncle and aunt who used to live behind the goalposts at Belmore. So I used to do conversions, and I used to catch the ball on the roof and throw the ball in the backyard and hide the balls. And so a lot of great memories. And even that game, like I look back at that now, there was a record crowd for a finals game, and you couldn't have scripted it any better. Like it was just a magic. And just on the run we had that whole year, it was kind of like, obviously we didn't get the grand final win, but that almost was a bit of a climax for us. We kind of had everything go so well, and that game couldn't have gone any better.
What a year.
Yeah.
What other memories do you have of that year? While we're talking about that 09 year, we do need to go back about the actual journey making it. I want to talk about little lessons you learned from maybe coaches in your junior years that some of the listeners will relate to, because the listeners are now influencing kids like you once were. So I definitely need to go back to that. But let's stick on 09 for a little bit, because it was such an enjoyable year.
Yeah.
What other memories do you have?
Well, I debuted round one that year. So for me...
Is that against New Zealand?
Against New Zealand, yeah. And so that first half of the year was actually terrible results-wise.
Yeah.
But as a kid, I was buzzing because I was playing first grade every week, and this is like my dream come true. And yes, if we didn't win a game, it would suck, but also knew that this is, it's just exciting for me to be in the NRL.
Yeah.
And then something happened. We're coming second last halfway through the year. And to Endo's credit, he threw out the playbook. We were trying to play a certain style that wasn't working. And a lot of coaches will wait till the end of the off-season and then make the change to the way you play. But he kind of in the middle of the season said, okay, we're going to scrap the way we're playing at the moment. The two forwards in the line playing in front of the ruck. I want them behind the halves. And just kind of completely change our style of play. And to his credit, he gave us a bit more rain, and that's when the offload started coming through, and Hainsey started to step up. But it was a really good, for a coach to adjust like that on the run and recognise, he probably got it wrong at the start of the year was a really good sign of a good coach. But one thing that stands out was I remember we went that bad in the first half of the year. We were playing Cowboys at Parra Stadium. And I still remember we had more people come to our open training session grand final week than we had come to a game against the Cowboys. So for me, I was like I realised how passionate fans can be when you guys are hot and going well.
I remember the meeting when Daniel did that.
Yeah.
Because it was a great lesson. Even I'm thinking about the type of people listening now. It was a great lesson of really owning it, like taking ownership of, instead of trying to find excuses here and there. And it was almost like, hey, it's on me, boys. But this is how we're going to fix it. And I remember that in that little video room in the gym there. It was very clear memory now you bring that up. You also mentioned your debut.
Yeah.
I always love debuts, mate. I love them because there's a story behind a debut. There's always a story of the kid that wanted it more than someone else growing up. There's the story of sacrifices. There's family stories, like seeing a debut jersey presentation and seeing like a mum and dad in tears, or like I love debuts, and that's why I usually remember most of them. So I remember yours, right? And I also remember the lead up, and I remember Craig Brennan.
Yeah.
Craig Brennan used to tell me stories about you all the time. So my role there at the time was a head of performance role, and underneath is all our junior teams. And as you know, I was brought through in a time there at Parramatta where whatever Brian Smith wanted at the top, it got filtered down. So there was staff kind of underneath you that are looking after young players. And Craig Brennan was one of them. Now, I loved it. I'd ring him up, how's everyone going, what's happening? And he just wanted to talk about Tim Mannah. And he was like telling me he was running around Parramatta Park with you a lot. Do you remember these runs? In the off season. And he said, I'm telling you, Hayden, this kid, Tim Mannah, like his work ethic, and he just kept talking about you. Now, fast forward to your debut. I'm usually in that privileged spot where players will come and thank you, or they'll give you a signed jersey, or say thank you, whatever. But I remember I actually went and got your jersey, your jersey number, and I even signed it to Craig Brennan, and I come and got you to sign it to Craig Brennan. Yeah. Because at that time, as much as I say I love debuts, I love also the stories of the school teacher that helped that kid, or the trainer that's running around the park with that kid, or there's always a person there that put their arm around that kid that said, hey, I'm going to take you all the way. Yeah. That's what I remembered when you just mentioned your debut. Do you remember those runs with Craig Brennan, and who else influenced your career as a junior?
Yeah, well, to be honest, that was a really good lesson for me to learn from you, because when you are debuting, there's so much excitement and there's like a lot of buzz in the air about your like playing, and it's not that you forget how you got there, but you're just so focused on getting out there and debuting. And you actually made the point saying you should really go out there and thank Breno. And I thought, of course I should thank Breno. But it took you having to say that to me. But that helped me a lot in the rest of my career. So whenever there was a milestone or something, like I could either say that to another player to remember who helped them get there, or even myself. I used to like remind myself at every milestone, okay, you've achieved this milestone, but make sure and it helped me stay, I guess, connected to my roots of where I came from and how I got there. I was very fortunate. I had some very good people in my life, from a mentor all the way back from school. Our PE teacher was our footy coach, a guy called Mr. Jackson, who I still speak to today. He lives in Perth, but he really guided me because he was so much bigger on than just being a good footy player. He wanted you to be a good man. And every chat we had was never about footy. It was always about me as a person. And he was kind of my first leader in terms of that world.
Shout out Mr. Jackson.
Yeah, Paul Jackson. And then I had Joey Grime as my first Harold Matthews coach.
Great.
I'll go a year before that because we had 2 years of Harold Matthews. I had Gareth Holmes, who's now the CEO of the North Sydney Bears.
Legend.
Not just a great footy brain, a great person. And it's funny, you were just talking about how you were the head, like in Brian Smith's system, where all the staff had like kind of fell under you and kind of mimicked you. It's funny that you say that because I've never thought about it from the staff point of view because I've always looked at Brian Smith's system as the prototype for players and athletes to come through.
Yeah.
So we'll always say how Parramatta in those days, we were the best club when it came to structure. So as a 14 or 15-year-old, myself and our team were just little robots. We're like mini first graders as kids. And we just got trained the same way that you guys would have got trained. We got the same plays, the same techniques, the same rules. So by the time we came to first grade, it was the transition was easy. It wasn't hard. In fact, it actually felt like it got easier as you got older because you guys flogged us so much as youngsters that we knew if you want to make it, you got to work hard. So we just got smashed as kids, and Breno was a big part of that. But it's interesting to say that about the staff because if I look back now and I'm looking back at people that influenced me and mentored me, like Gareth Holmes, Joey Grimer, Craig Carmane, and then I always talk about Matt Cameron, but I had Matt Cameron as my coach in the 20s, the first year of the Toyota Cup. Remember the...
Yeah. And he was with us in 09.
And then he was the assistant coach in 09.
Yeah.
But I was his captain in the Toyota Cup, and he invested into me more than just... kind of like Mr. Jackson at school. It was more than just about football. So I remember him giving me books by John Maxwell on leadership and like things that... And he was my coach, so I was like absorbing all of it. So anything he gave me, I wanted to learn. And I learned more about leadership from... my 12 months playing in that 20s comp with him than I did, the 20 years leading up to that point. And then to have him as an assistant coach in the NRL when I got in there, it wasn't like a safety blanket, but it was just great to have someone that I respected so much in the journey with me.
Yeah.
And I do talk about him a lot on podcasts or radio, but it just mind-blowing to think about the impact he's had on Penrith. Like everyone, and I've got the world of respect for Ivan Cleary and the club and the team that they have. But anyone that understands structure of clubs and culture can see what Camo's done since he's been there. He's got there. He's built a club from the bottom up that is it's scary. Like it's scary in the best way possible. Like,
well, mate, I listen to you and I hear you talk about these guys with so much genuine love for them.
Yeah.
Right. And you think about those types of people. If you get into coaching or you're in a job that you're responsible for a young kid's life, really, or influencing their life, the reason they do it is they would love to hear that one day.
Yeah, okay.
They would not the reason the reason they do it is because they love helping other people, right? It's just in them. It's in the teacher, the coach, those types of people. But then I'm sure they would sit back and love listening to that now, because you talk about there's so much love in your speak here when we're talking about these guys, And if I think about how they coached, like Joey Grimer, for example, there's so much love in his players, how he coaches.
Yeah.
And then for you to then remember that all these years later, there's a little nugget of gold there for whoever's listening now, because you've mentioned the school teacher, you mentioned Camo. Like I could talk about Matt Cameron.
Yeah, you obviously know. You've
myself,
seen it more than anyone. Yeah.
We worked together a lot there at the Eels. Then I worked with him at Penrith, and I've had him on this show. So if anyone's out of all the new listeners that Timmy's going to bring, go back and listen to Matt Cameron, and you'll hear it for yourself why he's such a good CEO of a rugby league club.
Yeah,
I've also done one with Gareth Holmes.
Oh, nice,
as well.
The G baby.
Yeah. So a couple of guys you mentioned there. So I'll have to get Joey Grimer on. I noticed the other day the Papua New Guinea school boys team maybe.
Yeah.
And they drew with the Australian schoolboys. Like they were winning till them.
Yeah.
And I kept hearing the commentary, Joey Grimer is working for Papua New Guinea. And you can clearly see what he's already doing to that country.
Yeah. Well, I looked at the playing structure we had, and you just made me aware of the coaches that we saw in that structure. But even the admin side of things now, like Joey Grimer's there doing the P&G bid, he's helping out with that. But Andrew Hill is the CEO, who's another former
Hill,
but you look at guys like Phil Morris and Tony Zappia, all these guys that end up going to other clubs and succeeding everywhere else. Warburton, there's a guy called Chris Edwards who's now head of partnerships in the LA Rams. He used to work at Parramatta.
Yeah, right.
So there's so many people that came from this club that end up branching out and doing some really big and great things. So not just the players, not just the coaching staff, but also in the admin side as well.
Yeah. Oh, some great memories just keep coming back when you're mentioning names, do you stay in touch with many of the crew from that year, like 09? Like, let's name drop a few and let's see what memories you have. But again, let's think about the listener. Is there any qualities of those types of people that we could share? So, Daniel Mortimer.
Yeah, so I'm part of a group chat with, you remember Anthony Mitchell, Daniel Mortimer, a guy called Dom as well. So they, for me, like those guys, we played 20s together, so we were part of Matt Cameron's team coming up.
Yeah.
So to come through, and same thing, to be able to play first grade that first year with Mortu, we played together as kids growing up. He was my brother Johnny's age, so he was a year younger than me.
Yeah.
But we used to spend every Australia Day at his winery in Orange. That crew and my brother Johnny, and we had like some of our best memories as kids together. So it was great to be able to do that with him. I've got so much love for Morton and his family as well. The most beautiful family.
They are.
They're just
shout out
different.
Mortimer's Winery.
Yeah.
Go visit Mortimer's Winery in Orange.
Yes, sir.
The old schoolyard barn and
since 1966, I think. 1866, sorry.
Yeah.
But he's also pretty hands on there now. Mort. So Daniel's there at the farm, like working. I think he's doing a lot of the sales and at the front.
Okay.
But he's getting better looking with age. And in case you talk about that Bulldogs game, that was a big game for him. Obviously, playing against his parents, his dad's old club, and there was a lot of media attention going into that game about him. I ended up scoring my first try in my career in that game, which for me was like a really special moment. But to score that try, I had to snake him. So Hainsey makes a bit of a half break, was throwing it to Daniel Mortimer. And I was in between Hainsey and Daniel. And I just kind of like snatched it out of the air to score my try.
Beautiful. Was that your first try?
That was my first try,
wow.
yeah.
What a game to do it.
I know. But then Daniel ended up scoring later in that game. And he told me after the game, he goes, mate, you're lucky I scored it later on because you snaked me. But yeah, so Daniel Mortimer, obviously, I've got so much nostalgic memories from him because of those days on the farm, in the winery. And,
awesome.
Yeah, it was really, really special.
Well, my memory that may help if there's any young, because I know some athletes listen as well. My first impression, which are very big in a team sport, if you get an opportunity as a young kid to come into a full-time squad, your first impression is pretty important. The work ethic and his competitiveness was like, wow, that's a character you want in your team. And then what that then did was earn respect from older players.
Yeah.
Then there was a day, remember we had that nice little boxing gym was my favourite part of the room. We had a boxing room in the corner. Well, there was a day we had we'd get some professional fighters in.
Yeah, I remember very clearly.
well, the thing was, and one of them was James Tahuna, who's also been on this podcast. Great episode. One of the reasons we'd get pro fighters in is because believe it or not, I was caring about your safety.
Yeah. No, I get it now.
Because putting two non-fighters together with a bit of, you're all very powerful, strong, aggressive competitors. Like sometimes that could get out of hand for the type of session we wanted, right? Because we wanted to see people's character, but we needed to do it in a way where you could grab a pro fighter and say, hey, put some pressure on Timmy, see how he reacts, but don't hurt him. And they'll go, yep, okay, boss, Yeah. So it was planned a little bit better than maybe you think. But one thing happened was Daniel Mortimer, we would put him in there against some bigger guys,
Yeah.
And one of them who went on to have a fairly good career in boxing, remember the guy they called Big Daddy? Lucas Brown?
Lucas Brown. That was the first one that came to mind.
Yeah, so he also played as a junior of Parramatta, but I think he might have won a world title. Like he had a fairly good career. At that stage, he wasn't super high profile, but he ended up.
Though.
Yeah, he was huge, mate. And anyway, he jumped out of the ring and he grabbed me, and he had no idea who you all were. Or, well, I don't think he did. Actually, he probably did because he was a league person. But he actually said, "That kid there, you want him in your team."
Yeah,
because like they would like punch Morty in the face type of thing, like not crazy, but. And Morty would just keep coming. Never took a backward step. He wasn't a fighter or anything, but he never took a backward step. And I loved it because, so I jumped in and had a little spar with Morton. I ended up getting a little black eye, and I never forget that because the photos of my kid's christening, I had a little black eye.
Yeah.
And people would ask, oh, what happened? And like people would think maybe Fui Moi Moi punched me in the eye, but it was actually little Daniel Mortimer.
Yeah.
You know. So anyway, back to that bit for the listeners of the first impression he made on staff, the first impression he made on senior players, and the first impression he made on this pro fighter was he has the character you want in your team.
Yeah.
So anyway, we debuted him. I think he might have debuted against Cronulla from memory, and then the following week maybe Newcastle. And Newcastle was we started going on a bit of a run.
That's right.
You know? And I'll never forget it because Matt Cameron, assistant that week, decided part of his session was to do a lot of games around support play, just support play style games.
That was his bread and butter.
That was him.
He was great at that.
And then I remember that game, like him and Fui killed it that game.
Yeah.
And we started on a little bit of a run. But yeah, there's a little bit there on Morty. So we also just mentioned Fui. What do you remember? Fui Moi Moi.
Well, no one talks about, like everyone talks about Hainsey in 09. But if you go back to 09 and watch the highlights of Fui, it was probably one of the best seasons you've seen a front row have. Like he was a real catalyst for it. And to be honest, he actually probably helped Hainsey. He gave that platform because by him going forward the way he did, allowed the rest of the forwards to lay a platform which gave Hainsey the space he needed.
Yeah.
So huge raps need to go to Philly, and I'm obviously in awe of him as well. Like he took me under his wing, so I'm very grateful for the way he treated me. Like even from the stage at like 19, when I first started coming through, he just saw something in me and said, "I want to take him under my wing," and he took me to like there's a Italian family, half Italian, half Lebanese family that he used to go to have dinner every Wednesday night.
Yeah.
And they used to live near my parents. He's like, "You're coming with me tonight?" I'm like, "Oh, that's a bit awkward." I go, "Nah, it's all right." He goes, "No, you're coming with me." And then he took me there every Wednesday. I became very good friends with his family, and they're a beautiful family. But he just like would always find things to like include me in and take me under his wing. And then I had so much respect for him to the point where even where his career was starting to finish up at Parramatta, we kind of swapped. Like I was starting forward now. He was on the bench. But out of respect, he said, "You can't wear," because I wanted to be number 10. I grew up number 10. He goes, "You can't wear number 10. That's my number." So he was okay for anyone else to wear the number until he finished. And then once he left the club, he texted me saying, "Now it's you can wear number 10. I'm like, "Okay, cool." So it was almost like a handing over. But I love that guy. People don't underestimate when it comes to mentoring. He's got his own style of doing it, but he did it to myself, Semi Ryder. Like he would purposely, intentionally take people under his wing. And he did it in like a fatherly way. Like he'd still he'd work you hard, he'd make you do things for him, all that. But he always had your back, always took care of you, and you're like one of his.
Yeah.
And that's a real like leadership quality that people. It's not really a textbook leadership. People don't look at him and think, "Oh, what a leader," but he was a real leader in his own way.
He was, mate, and in his own community. I remember the first thing he did. He came in our office. We did some planning and stuff, and I like to get to know what's behind their story and what drives them. And the very first day I met him, he told me he wants to buy his mum a house.
Yeah.
Or build his mum a house in an island called Va'o, Va'o, I think it's
You
called.
got a good memory. I can't.
Yeah, mate. I'd never forget it because then once that player tells me that then becomes my goal too.
Yeah.
My goal is now to help Fui's mum get a house built.
Yeah.
So, we become. Actually, he always told me he'll take me to this island, and I've never been. So, Fui, if you're listening, I think he's still playing.
He's still going. He's still going. He's 73 years old and still playing.
Well, I'll never forget the three goals he had. One was build mum a house. One was play for New Zealand, even though he wanted Tonga as well, but he wanted to play for New Zealand. And the other was to have a long career in rugby league. So
he's definitely doing that.
You think about it. How old is he? He's about 50, but he's still playing. He's still playing the game in England. Yeah. He played over 200 NRL games here. He built his mum a house, and he gave me his first ever New Zealand jersey.
Really? Oh,
and it said Kai Whai Moi. I don't know if you remember that. He said Triple H. It said Dear Triple H, Kai Whai Moi.
That's good.
That's another story I don't know if we should say on the show.
Yeah, you can say it, just in a PG way.
Okay.
This is a good story.
So Brian Smith told me we're recruiting this guy, Fui Moi Moi. He struggles to speak English.
Yeah, which is a lie.
Yeah, and he might have been treated pretty poorly in the previous, like his most recent club or whatever. So
Yeah.
he was giving me this background because he knows my style with working with players is to care about them, or show them respect. So
Yeah.
my version of showing Fui respect, I said to Brian, okay, well, he struggles to speak English, so I'll try to speak Tongan.
Yeah.
So I asked, remember there's another guy, Mal Kafusi? Kafusi? So I grabbed Mal, who was speaking good English, but he was Tongan, and him and Fui had teamed up. And I said, Mal, tell Fui I need to learn 3 words: fit, fast, powerful. That's all I need him, fit, fast, and powerful. And the sky's the limit for him. So teach me those words. And he said, kai, whai, moi. So like every day, kai, whai, moi. Like if you saw Fui the first day, you think he's never playing.
Yeah.
Like he couldn't last for 5 minutes of your training session.
Yeah.
And kai, whai, moi, even like could run out for games, kai, whai, moi. And we ended up having such a great connection. Like he would ring and sing Hush Little Baby to my newborn son.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get him to sleep. Fui would sing over the phone. We had so many real close moments while I was trying to help him play first grade and trying to help him buy mum a house.
Yeah.
And anyway, one day he just said, hey, H, you know what kai whai moi really means? And I knew it. I was like, ah. And when he said it, Mal's in the corner, and I saw them both smile, and they built up the courage to tell me that for months I've been saying kai whai moi, kai whai moi. And I said, no, Fui, what does it mean? And he goes, eat, fuck, sleep. That's what we do in Tonga. And I was like, hey, so we might have to beep that out. But it now be like if I called him now, if I pick up the phone now, he will answer it with kai whai moi. It's just a little funny connection we have. But yeah, he was a leader in his own community, leader back home, leader of his family, leader of you guys. What a legend. Fui, if you're listening, we need you on the show. It might have to be one of those Zoom ones, but what a legend. You talk about Jared Hayne a lot.
Yeah.
My memories were there was a crew of you guys, not just Jared, coming through Parramatta Juniors.
Yeah.
Because Brian used to send me down to watch. And I remember this one night, we're up on the top oval, and I just went back and went, mate, like you were there.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like there was guys like Tony Williams, yourself, Chris Keating, Trent Hodgkinson.
Yeah.
Like I've already mentioned a couple of Origin players already. Chris Naninu, he played for his country after one NRL game eventually. Jared Hayne. Like there was this crew that I went back to Brian.
Talima Tortai ended up having a
Talima,
he
was a great crew. And I went back just going, holy, Brian, like this crew there is some talent in this crew and they're getting coached so well. And then he told me, and I talked about Jared,
Yeah.
Sorry, I should have talked about you more, but
he was a lot more exciting than I was.
Obviously, like if you go and watch a young crew, he's just a star.
Yeah.
So I went back and I told him about Jared. He said, well, test him out a little bit more. So I'd started doing a couple of things with Jared, and in and amongst that, like Jared just kept giving us more and more evidence to bring him in the squad, and then bring him in and get him influenced and led by guys like Tamana Tahu, who Jared idolised growing up. And there's a whole background of bringing Jared in and our plan with him and stuff. And I feel for Brian Smith now in that area because he was the one who identified bring him in, and he was the one working with staff on what to do with this kid.
Yeah.
He always was going to play him. But he ends up going through a bit of turmoil and they're not going to renew his contract. So anyway, he leaves, and the very next week, Jason Taylor debuts. He debuts him. So JT, rightly so, gets all this credit for debuting and Jared Hayne, and then people decided to criticise Brian on why didn't you ever debut Jared Hayne. But what they don't know is there was so much already happening behind the scenes.
Yeah.
like I could talk about Jared forever. You know what I think of Jared.
Yeah.
You know, in fact, even just talking now, I'm even picturing us, me, you, and him on the top field before he went over for his NFL journey.
Yeah, remember that?
Remember?
Yeah.
The reason I remember, because I have vision of my son Owen, who was, I feel like he might have been
so small,
4 or 5 years
Yeah.
old, and he was training with you and Jared Hayne in this picture. I think you were doing burpees, and he was trying to copy you in the background of the film. Yeah.
But you talk about that age group we had. So we had some superstars, right? But at the end of the day, we're only as good as the club made us. So you can have all the talent, and I'm sure there's teams or clubs in the competition now that have very similar talent that won't realise it because they don't have the structure in place to be able to develop it. So you talk about Brian Smith not getting the chance to debut Hainsey, but who knows what Hainsey would have been if he was in another club. Like obviously his talent, he would have been a freak.
Yeah.
But Parramatta gave at my age group every opportunity to excel because we went through this system where, you know, we had great coaches from a young age that cared about us a lot and knew their stuff. They were like mini NRL coaches. And then once we kind of got to the age of 17, we started Jets. It was like a junior elite training squad.
Yeah.
So we'd do that a couple of nights a week as well, a couple of mornings a week where it was separate from our team. It was like about 8 to 12 of us that were selected to be part of this.
Yeah, it's like an
fast track.
accelerated fast track.
So all that is structures that helped us get to where we got to. So we didn't get there just because we could play footy. We got there because we were lucky enough to be part of a club that had a culture and a structure that helped us blossom and have a good career.
Yeah. It's funny, the last episode I released was with Wes Mars, who now runs a company worth $1.6 billion. Great episode. I know you're into business. You should make sure you listen to that.
Yeah.
He was part of the Jets program in the early 2000s. Right. And he sat here and he talked so highly of Brian Smith's system, the Jets program, what it did for him, accelerated him and his learning. And then he left. He had to leave. Financial reasons took him to another club, and he didn't say that he regrets it, but he basically was like, going to that club, comparing it to what he left was like a startup business versus a mature, established business, which was Parramatta. And he left that club and went to another club, which was definitely a startup, and he played 2 NRL games for South. Yeah. And he retired at the age of 22.
Yep.
He went and started a business, and now 22 years later, it's valued at 1.6
What industry?
billion. Well, yeah, I'm going to tease you here to go back and listen.
Right, okay, done.
He bought a Bobcat
for
$14,000 when he retired from footy. He bought a Bobcat and he borrowed $25,000 for a tipper truck.
Yeah, wow.
That's how it started. And typical front rower, he just took it on and just took on the hard work and just kept working hard. Then he decided, right, I need to build a team. So within a team, I need my halfback, I need my characters, I need my workers, I need my detail guys. And he built a team, and eventually he now employs 2,000 people.
Wow.
He has businesses everywhere.
Good on him.
And it's a fascinating story. But then when you talk to him now, it's like talking to a coach, the way he thinks. And he's clearly got influences from coaches that helped him along the way, and there's business influence and whatever. And he's clearly got this work ethic that he takes out of rugby league, I'm sure. Yeah. But you'll have to listen to it. The episode before your one will drop. It's his one. His name's Wes Mars.
I remember reading an article in the paper about him the other day. Last year, I think. But very interesting read.
But he talks about the same Jets program that you did.
There you go. Yeah. But even and I know you have a lot of business people that listen to this, but the correlation between sport and business is uncanny. There's so many lessons you learn from sport, and that's why it's a shame that I'd love to see more athletes transition better, because they should have the skill set from their sporting days to be well in business, because they have work ethic, they know teamwork, they understand culture, they get all that. There's obviously parts that they struggle in the transition because you're so used to a certain way of living, and then you've got to adapt to another side. But as an employer, you should look at athletes as a real good asset, because they can bring so many things to your business that a lot of people don't have. We're so used to working hard. when I first transitioned from a player to the office, I worked for Parramatta in the corporate side. And it was a Monday morning, and it was about 9:45. I'm in the office. I'm working away, and I couldn't believe that it's 45 minutes into the workday, and people are still talking about their weekend. Because I'm so used to being on the clock that once you start, you started, and you're working now.
Yeah.
Obviously, I understand now that it's you can't be like that all the time.
Yeah.
But as an athlete, you just so used to, well, I'm working now. Like, let's get stuff done. And that's that work ethic that I think athletes have naturally. Yeah.
Well, they have it, but also somewhere in their life it was influenced as well by normally parents.
Yeah.
You know, I remember you always used to give credit to how you were brought up and the work ethic of your parents.
Yeah.
He was a bit the same in his episode of different things that influenced him. But like then not only have you been influenced by great people and work ethic by your own parents, then you put in the systems where you've worked hard from the age of 14 to then like all you know is hard work.
Yeah.
You know, so you're right. There's something in that for the business people to. I'm sure they do, mate. You know what happens? You get to a point where sport people start learning off business people, and business people love learning off sport people. But you get to that, and that's the type of listener actually that we're talking.
And
to.
good coaches understand that and embrace that. Like you see some really good coaches, they'll take some key leaders in business world and they'll collaborate. Like they'll work together. Like I know Robert does that a lot at Roosters, where he'll take them into their inner sanctum to show them how they do it. And then in return, they'll take him to into their world and show them how they run their business. And there's great lessons to learn both ways.
Yeah. Roosters is a great environment for that, and also just Trent Robinson, and who I work with now day to day.
Yeah,
he's also had similar influences from. We keep going back to a guy like Brian Smith.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah,
So he's. Robbo's part of all these different groups, leadership style groups, where he's
was Robbo part of Power as well? Or?
Yeah, he played one game for Parramatta.
So there's another one. You got
in
Robbo,
2002.
Flano came through the Para system.
Yeah.
Obviously Ando came through the system. Camo came through the system.
Yeah.
There's so many great footy minds out there that came through that. And Brian Smith, mate, he should take a lot of credit. And yourself, like that whole era, all those people involved in that club at that time that built those structures. Well, okay, I'm not taking anything away from Penrith. They are now the best team in the NRL, and I think it's built off the back of that structure. So you look back at how they revolutionized the game, and they created a system there that they knew worked, and now every club has their own way of plagiarizing or mimicking it. But at the end of the day, you guys were the pioneers of that system that no one else really had.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Matt Cameron will say a lot of that himself, and then obviously Ivan's got his bit, and I mean, there's a lot of great people out at Penrith that helped that, but clearly the development system, the reason why Matt Cameron was headhunted, was because of that Parramatta system. So, mate, he could name his own price right now.
Yeah, so he should.
Well, talk to me about what you believe is a characteristic of a great leader, because I mean, you were a captain yourself, and you've influenced a lot of people. But what do you believe is a great characteristic? And then let's name drop a couple of coaches, the best coaches you've worked with, or lessons you've learned.
Yeah, so for me, I came through an era with Kalis as captain, which I was pretty spoiled. I think when you look at like captains in other NRL clubs, and to have someone like Kalo as our captain at our club, we couldn't have asked for a better person to have at the top, or even like to learn from.
I love him.
Oh man, and just like the big silverback gorilla, and he didn't have to say too much, but when he spoke, it was powerful. Everyone listened. He just had this aura about him as well. So in terms of leadership, for me, I think he's a real natural leader. Like some people, it's like they got to force it, or they got to like try to become a leader, where he just was a leader, just being who he was. Yeah. And that allowed guys like Hindy and Birdie, the guys that he had in his corner. I'm sure he benefited a lot by having those close friends that could support him. But at the same time, it helped them be the larrikins, or allowed them to be who they need to be to help the team go well. So like they all had their own roles. Like, Hindy would make you laugh, and then Birdie would be able to have a bit of cheek about him, but also had this freakish skill that, would add to the team. So they all had these like special roles, but Kalo for me was just, your perfect example of what a leader should be in a captain.
Yep.
So I was pretty fortunate to have him. In terms of coaches, I keep going back to Ando. maybe I'll look through things with rose-colored glasses because that time of my life was, the most special time.
And he debuted you and you went to a
Exactly,
grand final.
yes.
And
And I understand, because everyone has their own experiences. So, like, some people might not agree with me, but for me, I can hands down say he was the best coach we had. And I can actually give the reasons why I thought he was a great coach. There was examples like the Dragons game where, the way he prepared us for one game compared to the other was a great coaching move.
I heard you talk about that on James Graham's podcast.
Yeah.
And it brought back great memories because it's so true. I was part of the staff where he was saying, don't give him anything.
Yeah, there you go.
And it was deliberate.
Yeah.
And we got pumped by the Dragons. And then the next week
But even before we left the
win.
stadium, I knew we were going to win because he just said, okay, that's on me. Now we're going to prepare to play.
100%.
And I'm thinking, okay, we'll win this. And
Yeah,
it was just, even like, it didn't have to wait till Monday to get to training to think we're going to win.
Yeah.
We went home that day thinking we're going to win, which is a great way to start your preparation.
Yeah. He did an episode for this show. It was really good, really good. Got so much good feedback. He's a very well-respected man in the game of rugby league. And for me, inspirational. Like, you think about it, he was, not many people know, he was the conditioner of the Parramatta Harold Matts team.
Yeah.
Get this, 7 years later, he was the head coach of the New Zealand Warriors, taking them to their first ever grand final.
Yep.
7 years later. And the stuff he did in that junior development system, again, that we keep talking about, that existed back then, groomed him to be a great head coach. 7 years later.
Then he goes to England and kills it in England.
Was never a superstar player, and he's first to admit it, never played NRL and all that stuff. He was a maths teacher at St. Greg's.
Yep.
Who Trent Robinson always said was the best coach he ever had.
Yeah.
And then, so all these years later, Trent Robinson goes and employs him, as head of recruitment at the Roosters. But he is so well respected. I had messages from everywhere about that episode.
I think his biggest skill set, which is something you can't really teach, is his confidence in himself. Like, a lot of coaches have that insecurity about them because they're always worried about their job. So he wouldn't care less what anyone thought, what the media said, what people. Well, he's just like, I know who I am, I know how to coach, and I'm just going to do it my way.
Yeah.
And that allowed the senior playing group to have confidence in what we're doing, and then allowed the kids in the team to have confidence because the senior players were confident.
Yeah.
But when you have a coach that's insecure and worried about every article that gets written and feel stressed after a loss, then the senior playing group feel and carry that same stress that the coach has, and it filters all the way through. Then you've got kids that are feeling stressed because the whole club's they're on eggshells. Yeah. And you got a CEO and office staff that are all stressing about every movement and every rumor and every loss. And that's, that affects the culture of a whole club. Definitely. So it's amazing how much a head coach's, composure can control a whole organization.
Well, the team is a reflection of the head coach and how he handles all that. You're so right.
Yeah. Who's one of your favorite coaches? You've worked with heaps. Like, who'd be one of your better coaches?
Mate, what a question.
Yeah.
Usually I'm asking all the questions. And you I tell you what, I love this.
Yeah.
Well, you do work in the media, so you've got a bit of that in you.
Yeah.
Mate, well, Wayne Bennett, without a doubt.
Right, yeah.
He became a friend and a mentor in so many ways. Brian Smith, without a doubt, gave me my first ever job and influenced me, and I stay in touch with him.
How did that come about? How did he give you a job? Like,
originally I got a job with the Parramatta Juniors, and there was guys in that junior system like Andrew Hill and Daniel Anderson and Shane Flanagan. There's all this crew of staff and these Parramatta Juniors, and Brian just come and watched me coach one day, and he told me he used to watch from behind the trees and didn't know I was there, like full on like spying on me, you know. And I never ever forget it. He walked over to me one day and just said, "Do you want to work for me full time?" Wow. And like, I never applied for a job. He just come and offered it. So he was a huge influence, but not only him, all his assistants.
Yep.
Like, I loved working with Rod Reddy. I loved working with Alan Wilson. Like Arnie Kay in the front office, Grant Jones. There was just so many good people that also influenced me. Daniel was one. Brian's brother Tony was another who went on a great career in England. But like since then, like, you tell me who were the best. Obviously Ivan Cleary and Trent Robinson.
You've worked with some good coaches. Like, you look at that, like the coaches you just named, some of the best we've had in the game for a long time.
Yeah, without a doubt, I've been really privileged to be surrounded by great people that have influenced how I see the game and how I study the game and how I coach. But then even influences before that, like my father was a great track and field coach and had a great way with athletes. And so I've always been surrounded by coaches from like childhood.
Yeah.
But then my adult life, the people I've been surrounded by, like on a daily basis, are guys like Matt Cameron or Ivan Cleary or all those names we mentioned. Like, there's a lot of names of coaches, but if I had to list them, like, mate, even Brad Fittler.
I was about to say, you were Freddie as well. I love his style.
Working with Brad Fittler. Mate, we had you in the city team.
Yeah.
Those years,
right.
you know, and people would often knock Freddie. Like, even when we started in Origin, we won the series in 2018, 2019, and people would be like, oh, he's doing all this visualization stuff, or he's banning the phones, or people, there was quirky stories come out, but he had a reason for everything.
Yeah.
Like, there was a time where the team went down to 12 men and he actually said, here's the moment where we see if banning the phones worked. Because his theory was you have 1 week to connect in Origin camp, 1 week to become best mates, and the most connected team will win next Wednesday.
Yeah.
So get rid of those phones, stop connecting with the rest of the world and connect with each other, even at breakfast or dinner. And it was a real thing. It was a hard thing to do, to tell young people of today, even old people now, to get rid of your phone. And anyway, we got down to 12 men. The game's in the balance. And when you're down to 12 men, that's when your communication needs to be at its highest.
Yeah.
You need to be the most connected you've ever been.
Yeah.
And we won that game.
Yeah.
Now, people don't know, but like, there's planning to that. There's teams doing stuff now, like whether it be the yoga or the meditation or the visualization, or like, they're doing stuff now that he was doing 15 years back, you know.
The Lebanon camp, and I remember this first day or two of camp was a 5-week camp. The first day or two, we had our phones, and every bus trip was just typical footy bus trip. Everyone's just quiet on their phone, just in their own world. So then he said, no phones outside your room. From then on, every bus trip was like the highlight of the camp. There was music and laughing and people on the microphone in the front telling stories. And he just created a culture in the space of like a couple of days. All of a sudden, we're just so close. And the other thing about Freddie, which is really special, is he's so different to everyone else in the game. He's not attached to, like, you know, the game's got, the older you get, you see so much more politics and agendas and everyone's coming from an angle. And he just flows through it. Now, especially like Lebanon's a great example, and I'm sure he would have had the similar in Origin, but Lebanon's got a lot of politics, and the board in Lebanon, there's all these like conflicts and that. And he just navigated through, like nothing stuck, and just kept going through, and he was able to be a great leader because he doesn't buy into all that stuff.
He's a great leader because his loyalty's off the charts.
Yeah.
He surrounds himself with people that he's really close with, and then he makes an effort. That connection piece, everyone knows connection is important, but he makes an effort. So every morning, every single morning in every camp I've ever been with Freddie, we go for a walk and talk
I've seen you guys
for an hour. Now, originally just used to be me and him, for example, back when we had you in city camps and things. And but then it was like, no, let's get this staff member, this one. And then by the end of his time with the Origin, it was like the thing to do that every staff member, 6 a.m. in the morning, walk and talk. And he believed that a connected staff then reflects on a connected team. And he didn't just say he valued it, he really, really lived it. And he made every camp so enjoyable that, like, when you ask me who are the best, like, so a couple of names just pop straight to mind. And they all influenced me in different ways.
Yeah.
You know, like Ivan, you would see if you listen to the episode I did with Ivan a couple of years back. We lived together 1 year. Like he influenced me in so many ways.
Yeah.
But then Freddie did in other ways, and then Brian Smith did in other ways, and then Wayne Bennett did in other ways. So I've been really, really privileged, I feel, to
So you'd have to pick one?
Well, I currently work with Trent Robinson, who he's won 3 premierships too, and he's influenced me in other ways that are so powerful and detailed, And his whole club has. The Roosters
Yeah.
is a great
Yeah.
place. He's the Roosters from Nick Politis down. It's to Kath King in the office. Like, it's a great place.
I saw when they were coming out for their semi-final, they all gave Kath a kiss on the way through.
They love him.
And I'm like, it reminded me of like Arnie K.
Arnie K back at Para.
That's like, when you talk about culture, people don't understand what culture is. Like, and it's when you have it, it's hard to explain what it is. But when it's not there, you can go, well, it was that. That's what it was. It was Arnie K in the front office making you a cup of tea when you come to the end.
Yeah.
You know, everyone like looking out for each other, and then the barbecue committee that'd be out there cooking barbecues for the boys, and it was like an honour to be in that barbecue committee. That's to earn their way in there. And
mate, when Robbo first employed me at the Roosters some time ago, and then I've been elsewhere and come back now.
Yeah.
The first person I met was Kath King. Now, he knew how much I loved Arnie K at Para.
Yeah.
He knew that up here. So when he's talking me into working for him, he introduced me to her. I never forget it, on the little stairway going up to his office. And he goes, Hayden, we call Kath the sun, because the whole place revolves around her.
That's awesome.
And he knew that I value that stuff in the club, you know. But yeah, if I was the Parramatta Eels, I would be employing Arnie K.
Yeah. It's a no-brainer.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Those people, what the club was and what it makes it special.
But I still didn't get to a best, did I? Well, Wayne Bennett's the best ever.
Yeah, it's hard to do.
And Ivan's on his way as the best ever, and that's not to say Robbo won't catch him. Like,
it says a lot about you, though. Like, you just listed some of the best coaches the game's ever had, and and you've worked with all of them. So for them to actually want to reach out and work with you says a lot about, I guess, your ability as a trainer.
I feel like I'm on your podcast now, because I usually like talking up the other people, and you're talking me up. You've had all sorts of different roles. The performance style area, and over time I care about everything. I care about the mental side, the physical side, the technical side, the tactical side, the cohesion.
What's your role
the
now?
culture.
What are you doing now?
I have an assistant coach role with Trent Robinson.
So you're not really are you S&C?
No, I'm not in.
Yeah,
I'm out of that space, and I kind of sat in the middle of it for a long time.
Yeah.
But Robbo pulled me over. But
is that something you want to do more of, that coaching? Like, is that something you can see yourself? Your next chapter now is, so you've kind of let go of S&C and you want to be a coach moving forward?
It's just where it's going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's awesome.
Yeah. And if I ever head coach anywhere, I'm employing you.
Thanks, mate.
But we'll have to finish, because, mate, I could talk to you all day. Everyone could feel that with me and you. I loved you, and I shouldn't go. I should not finish this show without saying how much I loved your brother.
Thanks, mate.
Also,
yes, appreciate that.
I still love seeing the Johnny Mannah Cup.
Yep.
You know, so I can't finish the show without saying how much I loved him. And people will feel it when they listen to this chat, mate. You have so much to offer in so many places. We didn't even go what you're doing in your business world, but people can Google it. They'll find it. Your media stuff. You have so much to offer, mate. You're a leader from the first time I met you, and you continue to be one.
Thanks, H. Cheers. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, mate.